this very long introduction. It'll be really just a simple teacher, really. Okay? So it's an exciting topic and fantastic to see so many people that are passionate about this industry that are here with us this afternoon. Thank you to iN.LAB for hosting this, and I want to make a special mention to CET Global, who are part of this integration of this presentation with Willis Watson here this afternoon. Okay, I want to touch on 3 areas. Firstly, Willis Watson have just completed their global future work research. So I want to share just a few slides on that, but I will make the full report available, global and Asia-Pac data available to you, so we can find a way to make that happen so you can get access to that report. So I want to share a little bit on that. Secondly, I want to talk about where we're at right now in Singapore in this sector, and then what does all of this mean in terms of this future, this digitization, and the changing landscape that we live in, and where Singapore are going in terms of the smart nation, and what role the training and adult education sector will play along this. Where do they need to go next? And obviously the panel after that are going to give some insights, and you're welcome to ask us as many questions, particularly my other 2 panelists. Okay? All right. So we're in the 4th industrial revolution right now, the 2nd digital revolution, and there's a lot of things changing. Technology is accelerating at an exponential pace. In the next 14 years, it will be 10,000 times the capacity of technology today. Can you imagine where we've come from the 1960s when IBM first put their computers in NASA to today? And where we'll be in another 10 to 15 years is astronomical. Jobs that are most in demand today didn't exist 10 years ago. In fact, most of the in-demand jobs today didn't exist even 5 years ago. 65% of children entering primary school today will be in a job that doesn't actually exist right now. All right? So the way we think and the way we need to think, not just in the TAE sector, but in every sector, in every country, needs to change. All right? So let's look at the results. So we had over 900 organizations globally. Asia-Pac were very, very key to the contributors of this, with 56% of those that participated from Asia-Pac. So we have a very good perspective on the future of work in terms of automation and technology, what's happening around that space, and are we ready for this technology explosion? You can also see the size of the organizations involved in this survey. So predominantly they were larger mid-market to up to 10,000 employees for the dominant group, and you can see the cross-section as well. 2 key financial services and manufacturing. Over 38 countries were involved. Now, what is the purpose for having automation in organizations? The myth is, and what a lot of people read about on social media, oh my God, my job's going to be taken over. I'm going to lose my job to some kind of machine. Now, the research tells us that's a myth. In fact, 66% of people in Asia-Pac believe that automation will augment, will add value to human performance and productivity levels, not displace people, all right? So that's a myth. And we also know that cost is important, but only 70%, all right? It's even higher globally with 24%. And then reducing error rate is getting even smaller, but displacement of people fits within under that 4% umbrella. It doesn't even have its own category. So that is not the main reason for bringing automation and technology into business, not just within IT and IT process, but across and through the entire business, right? if we look where we are today compared to 3 years ago, we've doubled automation. And it will double again within the next 3 years. And the next 3 years are critical. Our research also says that 66% of CEOs believe the next 3 years are more critical than the last 50 years. So there's going to be a lot of change, and there's already a sense of change in organizations now, all right? But it's going to be very explosive in the next 3 years. So we need to set the scene, and we need to educate people in the workforce so they have a better understanding at all levels, at board levels, C-suite, mid-management, and white collar, blue collar, everyone, right? Our research also shows that 100% of work being done by humans is evolving. 3 years ago, it was 59, 57%. You can see in the next 3 years, it's only going to be 21%. So what that means is some of the tasks done by humans in organizations will be automated, but not in the entire role, the entire job, just some of the tasks within a job, all right? So we're not displacing the whole person, part of the person. So what does that mean for those individuals? What will they then do? Do they need to be reskilled? Probably, because 20 to 30% of their job will be freed up by automation or by a third-party contingent worker at a lower cost point in a third world country, right? Or by a virtual worker, or by a consultant like me, right? So there's alternative ways to get those tasks done. Now, Willis tells Watson's point of view is basically the democratization of work. So we look at a job and we deconstruct it to tasks, just like a job description. You look at your job description, you often see there's 10 things I do. Those are tasks, right? Now, how can those tasks be done? Some of those tasks could be automated at a lower cost point, yes. Some of those tasks could be outsourced to a contingent worker at the front end of the cycle of that job. And other things will need to be done by you, but that will free you up. So what does that mean? You're going to have to do something to justify, 1.0th of a salary, right? So you might need to be reskilled. And what are the skills you want to be reskilled in? What skills are required by the business to add further value? And these are questions. And who's going to do that? Is it going to be HR? Is it going to be a consultant? Will the TAE sector start to morph and evolve their roles towards that space? I believe so. I really do believe. As educators, we understand macro, micro. We understand how to facilitate and engage. We understand how to diagnose. We understand how to listen and articulate. And we understand how to facilitate and discuss. Those are key skills that will add significant value in this major gap that is currently existing and will continue to exist and morph. And then we've got what are the types of tasks or activities that will be completely automated. And you can see we're moving from 3 years ago to 3 years ahead, about 30% will be automated, all right, completely. So there's a shift, a double up. If we look at HR functions, and you can see it's got a lot of information on this slide, but basically what this is saying is a lot of organizations are unprepared. They don't know what to do. They're a bit lost. You can see about a third of the organizations are considering actions to take to become prepared in the future. And then you've got some that are starting to plan, but not executing yet, all right? Because who's going to execute? If you look at those three and you add those up, you're dealing with about 80 to 85% of organizations on all of these tasks that are just about to get started or execute or develop a tactical plan on execution. What are the ones that will start to permeate within the TAE sector? There's quite a lot of them, right? Advisory, career pathways, the architecture of skills, the delivery of skills, identifying the skills that need to be developed, and then who then delivers and upskills. All of those fit somewhere in some of your roles and expertise. Will they more become full-time roles? Possibly. Will they become a career track for the TAE sector in the future? In 5 years, in 10 years? More likely, all right? Based on the needs and the demand. Here's another slide that is basically saying that leaders and managers are not ready. They don't have the skills to change. They don't have the skills to engage, to communicate, to execute on a lot of what I've just been talking about. So it's a bit stagnant. That's why there hasn't been much movement in Asia yet, all right? Because people are a bit lost and they're looking for somebody to tell them what to do. HR are looking at the CEO, and the CEO is looking at HR. And some of them are looking at the board, some of them are looking at government and saying, please help us, tell us what to do, and then we'll do it. We'll get started. All right? There's no case studies developed in this space yet. There's starting to be case studies come out of the US, and then we hear of these horror stories by financial advisors being replaced by robo-advisors, right? These social robotics, machine learning. What is machine learning? What's the difference between machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence? Well, we need to start reading. We actually need to start educating people so they feel comfortable with technology. Some of you are grandparents, I can see, and your children are already pretty au fait with technology. Actually, they don't even need a manual. When you buy a new phone, you have no idea how to use it, right? But these, they don't even need the manual. They just can pick it up and work it out. My daughter's 19, second year at university. I remember visiting her recently, and she was in the car, and we were driving, and she was completing an assignment, a group assignment, through WhatsApp. All right? I hope most of you know what WhatsApp is, right? Okay? But it's quite incredible how these young millennials are actually working, completing activities and tasks very, very differently. So we've got the baby boomers, the Gen Ys, the Gen X's, and we've got these millennials, or the strawberry generation they call them. And then there's the alpha generation. All right? People are going, oh, I haven't read about them, because they're not even born yet. All right? But me as a strategist, educationalist, I've got to start thinking about these alpha generation. They're going to be born in 2030, and they're going to be very, very different. They're going to live to 150, right? So they're going to work longer. So the Singapore government are talking about lifelong learning right now, right? Well, it pretty much is. And the life cycle of skills, 2 to 3 years currently, 2 to 3 months. So who's going to train people to keep upskilling? Because with technology enablement, things are morphing at such a rate. Remember, in 14 years, 10,000 times the current technology capacity. It's incredible to think. So the hybrid between machine and human is going to be blurred. We're going to be part machine, whether you like it or not. And I was trying to think of a story like what I could use an analogy to kind of, improve the dialogue here. And I thought, imagine getting a puppy for the home. Most people can relate to this, right? So you've got a puppy, and this puppy needs to go to the toilet. And you're in an apartment, right? You've got to go downstairs, you've got to work out how much water to feed the dog, and when to take him to the bathroom. You've got to get the family involved, right? So it becomes a community learning experience. They learn together by doing, and by the errors of when the puppy makes a mistake. There's emotions involved. There's training and development involved, right? Through trial and error and all sorts, right? We can read online. We can watch a documentary. We can get a book. We can watch a TED Talk. We can do all sorts of things. to learn and understand how to ensure we build this relationship with the dog and it's successful for everyone. And the dog has a good environment. This is what technology is going to be like in the workplace. It's the same. It's the same process, I believe. And it's something we can all relate to about a puppy, all right? Same in the workplace, but are people ready? Because there's a fear factor, and we've created this blockage. So as educators, we need to help prepare people. That's our role. And there's a lot of opportunity in this sector because we can really make a difference. We can really help this execution of the smart nation that Singapore wants to achieve. Because the workforce, the growth rate is on decline. All right, it's used to be about 4% growth. Now it's dropping, and it's getting closer and closer. And in about 10 years, it's going to be close to 1% and then 0. So that means for every person leaving the workforce, there's only one person joining the workforce, so there's no growth. Which means we have to rely on technology. And that means the TAE sector needs to also use technology to enable us to get to the future and prepare the business and the economy. If we don't, we're bugging. That's my Kiwi accent coming through, right? So leaders need to prepare. And they need to prepare right now, all right? There's a major skill development needed with leaders and managers. And a lot of us do leadership training and development as well. Okay, let's move to some of the roles that are more likely to be susceptible to automation. And I need to move along pretty quickly here. You can see here that more routine, predictable physical labor will be more likely to be automated. So the blue-collar workers will need to be retrained. And I'll give you some dramatic examples. So let's take China. Over 1 billion people, right? 75% of their workforce do routine manual physical labor. Now China and some of the big organizations are starting to acquire robotics, right? They're starting to replace some of these humans at an even lower cost point. They don't even have to pay tax yet, right? So a lot of this will change, all right? And then on the other side, those that have more human interaction are less susceptible to change, but not completely, all right? Not completely. So this is where we talk about our research in terms of how much of a job or an occupation will be automated. Only 5% roughly can be 100% automated. That's slowly going to increase. So truck drivers in the US, for example, there's 3 million of them, or 3.5 million. In the next 6 or 7 years, they will be displaced. They will be replaced. Now, we talk about these drivers, taxis and all sorts, but would you get into a taxi without somebody driving? Probably not. Would your grandchildren? Maybe. So things will change. But we do know that about 1/3 of jobs and occupations will be automated. And that means we need to deconstruct and then reconstruct skills for everyone, for every individual. Now that is 2.3 million people in Singapore. And there's 20,000 of us in this workforce. That's not enough. Technology is going to be important. Here's some jobs, here's some roles and some skills. And these are the roles and jobs where the skills, the lifespan, are not 2 to 3 years. They're more 2 to 3 months, right? So there's an upskilling required. Now we know the Singapore government have come up with a bit of a strategy for the white collar. And here's some key skills that they've allocated out to providers, key providers in Singapore. And that's going to help us a lot, right? So clarified and identified who are the best
providers out there. Some of you will be adjunct and part of the university and the polytechnics in terms of delivering on some of this. But that's not considering the blue collar, all right? Those that are more automated roles. So we need a strategy for them as well. Just like China does, Philippines, Indonesia, every market, right? Now let's have a look at appreciation for the sector. As I said, almost 2.3 million employees working, and we have 20,000 of us in the sector. In terms of what's happening, we know that the world is becoming very connected because of technology. Learning communities, user-generated learning and knowledge and content through Web 2.0 is all on the go. And this is happening, and it's affecting skills and the development of learning communities and social learning. How many of you go to LinkedIn to read articles, right? A lot of you. Will we be recognizing that kind of learning when people go to universities and polytechnics for qualifications? That's something we need to consider. Here's a bit of a snapshot here. This is the issue. 77% of organizations are basically saying because of the lack of skills, it's slowing down the rate that we need around technology. We have a deficit of 38 to 40 million skilled workers. So they need to be upskilled. And we have a surplus of the blue-collar workers because automation is going to take over those roles. They need to be retrained. So training is key. We have a growth in contingent workers, freelance workers, right? And they also need to be trained and learn. Now they can go to a classroom-based environment, or they can learn online, or through a tablet, through some kind of mobile or learning platform, all right? But I think we'll see more bite-sized learning, more pulse learning, more 24/7 learning. Learning as you're doing. As you're actually executing and you don't know what you're doing, you're learning. Rather than stop, retrain in a polytechnic at night and then go back once you've got a qualification and then. You're going to be learning as you're doing and executing in the workplace. Now how do we, as a TAE sector, prepare for that? We've come up with a series with CET Global on how we see the future, and we'll talk a little bit about that. You can ask questions. You'll have access to this at some stage. We've got one reading that we've provided to you. But I want to move into where we're at and where we need to go. Now, the government, IAL, have put forward pretty much bang on some emerging future-proof skills that are needed by the TAE sector. We need to be more innovative, right? We need to embrace technology. We need to get closer to the business because that's the bread and butter of what we do. We're preparing people to add value for the economy, right? We're going to get closer to consulting, right? It may not be 100% of our job, but it will become part of it. And maybe it could be a new track for some of us, as well as connecting to understanding what is happening in the workplace and the changes. On top of that, we believe we do need to look at understanding how to develop here different types of case studies that are more relevant. Looking at interdisciplinary dialogue between different disciplines rather than just one that we're content subject matter experts in. We need to get connected to technology and learning platforms. Virtual classrooms are going to play a key role if we're going to meet the needs of the business landscape. Here's some of the trends we see. There will be more synergy between the pre-employment and the continuous education sectors. We'll have to start to think about recognizing community learning and social learning, how we strategize about skill acquisition in terms of the new skills required to complete tasks, and then how do we develop those skills. and what platforms do we use to deliver that learning. And then of course the analytics side of it, which is going to become very important. Predictive analytics, and how do we look at that data. And then the research arm is also going to play a role in the TAE sector. And then of course this hybrid from career counsellors, career consultants, career advisors to skill and career advisors. Here's our snapshot with CET Global in terms of how we see the tracks evolving in this career map, right? This is pretty traditional, and you'll see the relevance and see where you fit. But we believe that these will evolve and they could become permanent key tracks in the TAE sector. This career advisory, all right? Linking skills and career pathways and discussing that with adult learners, with industry, with businesses. And then you've got the business consultancy, understanding the diagnosis of the business. Going in, doing a diagnosis, understanding the key business metrics, and how to measure and evaluate the impact of that skill development. And then the research arm. Currently it's in the universities and polytechnics. We'll have more independent researchers in this TAE sector as well. Again, we also see the morphing of a skill architect. Now this skill architect is basically an evolution. Some of you would probably consider yourselves skills architects now, but maybe not 100% of what you do. But these are morphed roles, and they're not so structured linearly in terms of after 15 years I become a skill architect. It could be a hybrid for the next 5 to 10 years, but eventually you'll see that different tasks within the different roles within the TAE sector will evolve from where we see technical skills and competencies today to more of the future, more of a pedagogical approach where we see more peer community learning, more self-generated learning, more user-generated content, more movement from business literacy, understanding how the business dynamics operate within industries. That's pretty much all I've got time for because we need to move on to the panel assessment. So hopefully you've got some insights for me this afternoon, and hopefully you've got some questions for the other panelists. But thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Daryl. Wow, wonderful insights there. Thank you very much.